One of the worst airplane accidents in history occurred on March 27, 1977, when two Boeing 747 passenger planes collided on the runway of the Tenerife airport in the Canary Islands. The accident resulted in the deaths of 583 people, making it the deadliest aviation accident in history. Here are some additional details about the accident. The two planes involved were a KLM 747 and a Pan Am 747. The KLM plane was attempting to take off from the runway while the Pan Am plane was taxiing on the same runway. Due to foggy conditions and miscommunications between the pilots and air traffic control, the KLM plane started its takeoff roll without receiving clearance to do so. The Pan Am plane was still on the runway at the time. The KLM plane collided with the Pan Am plane, causing both planes to explode and burst into flames. Of the 644 passengers and crew on board the two planes, only 61 survived. All of the survivors were on the Pan Am plane. The accident was a wake-up call for the aviation industry, which subsequently made significant improvements in communication, training, and safety protocols to prevent similar accidents in the future. Overall, the Tenerife airport disaster was a tragic event that had a significant impact on the aviation industry and the way that air travel is regulated and managed. One of the worst airplane accidents in history was the crash of Japan Airlines Flight 123 on August 12, 1985. The accident resulted in the deaths of 520 people, making it the deadliest single aircraft accident in history. Here are some additional details about the accident. Japan Airlines Flight 123 was a Boeing 747 flying from Tokyo to Osaka, Japan. Shortly after takeoff, the rear pressure bulkhead of the plane failed, causing a rapid decompression of the cabin and severing the hydraulic lines that controlled the plane's rudder and elevators. Despite the damage to the plane, the pilots were able to keep the plane aloft for more than half an hour and attempted to make an emergency landing at a nearby military base. However, the plane crashed into a mountain in a remote area, killing all but 4 of the 524 people on board. The accident was attributed to a faulty repair that had been made to the pressure bulkhead 7 years earlier. The repair did not conform to Boeing's maintenance standards, and the pressure bulkhead eventually failed due to metal fatigue. The crash of Japan Airlines Flight 123 led to significant changes in the way that aircraft maintenance and safety inspections are carried out, particularly with regard to the inspection and repair of critical components such as the pressure bulkhead. The crash of Japan Airlines Flight 123 was a tragic event that had a lasting impact on the aviation industry and the way that airplane safety is regulated and monitored. Another one of the worst airplane accidents in history was the crash of TWA Flight 800 on July 17, 1996. The accident resulted in the deaths of all 230 people on board, making it one of the deadliest plane crashes in American history. Here are some additional details about the accident. TWA Flight 800 was a Boeing 747 flying from New York City to Paris, France. Shortly after takeoff from John F. Kennedy International Airport, the plane exploded in mid-air and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Long Island, New York. The cause of the crash was initially believed to be a terrorist attack, but subsequent investigations determined that the explosion was caused by a fuel tank explosion. The exact cause of the explosion is still a matter of debate, but it is believed to have been caused by a spark that ignited the fuel vapors in the empty center fuel tank. The crash of TWA Flight 800 led to significant changes in the way that aircraft fuel tanks are designed and maintained. The incident also highlighted the importance of proper maintenance and inspection of critical aircraft components. The crash of TWA Flight 800 was a tragic event that had a lasting impact on the aviation industry and the way that airplane safety is regulated and monitored. Another one of the worst airplane accidents in history was the crash of Air France Flight 447 on June 1, 2009. The accident resulted in the deaths of all 228 people on board, making it one of the deadliest plane crashes in French history. Here are some additional details about the accident. Air France Flight 447 was an Airbus A330 flying from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil to Paris, France. The plane encountered severe turbulence and stormy weather over the Atlantic Ocean, and the pilots reported a loss of airspeed and altitude readings. Despite the pilots' efforts to recover the plane, it crashed into the ocean and broke apart upon impact. The exact cause of the crash was initially unclear, but subsequent investigations determined that the accident was caused by a combination of factors, including faulty airspeed readings, confusion among the pilots, and the plane's automation system. The crash of Air France Flight 447 led to significant changes in the way that pilots are trained to handle emergencies, particularly with regard to manual flying skills and communication in high-pressure situations. The crash of Air France Flight 447 was a tragic event that had a significant impact on the aviation industry and the way that airlines approach safety training and risk management. Another one of the worst airplane accidents in history was the crash of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 on July 17, 2014. The accident resulted in the deaths of all 298 people on board, making it one of the deadliest airline disasters of all time. Here are some additional details about the accident. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 was a Boeing 777 en route from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. The plane was shot down over eastern Ukraine, an area that was experiencing conflict between Ukrainian government forces and pro-Russian separatists. The cause of the crash was determined to be a surface-to-air missile that was fired at the plane. The missile was believed to have been launched by the pro-Russian separatists, who were suspected of mistaking the commercial airliner for a Ukrainian military plane. The crash of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 was widely condemned by the international community, and there were calls for an independent investigation into the incident. The crash of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 highlighted the dangers of flying over conflict zones, and led to changes in the way that airlines assess and mitigate these risks. The crash of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 was a tragic event that had a significant impact on the aviation industry and the way that airlines approach risk management and safety. The Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crash that occurred on March 10, 2019. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 was a Boeing 737 MAX 8 flying from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to Nairobi, Kenya. The plane crashed shortly after takeoff, killing all 157 people on board, including crew and passengers from over 30 countries. The cause of the crash was determined to be a faulty sensor that caused the plane's automated flight control system to repeatedly push the nose of the plane down, despite the pilot's attempts to correct the issue. The crash of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 led to the grounding of all Boeing 737 MAX planes around the world, as well as a significant overhaul of the plane's flight control systems and a reassessment of pilot training programs. The crash of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 was a tragic event that had a significant impact on the aviation industry and the way that airplane safety is regulated and monitored. The Lion Air Flight 610 crash that occurred on October 29, 2018. Lion Air Flight 610 was a Boeing 737 MAX 8 flying from Jakarta, Indonesia, to Pangkal Pinang, Indonesia. The plane crashed into the Java Sea, killing all 189 people on board. The cause of the crash was determined to be a combination of factors, including technical malfunctions and pilot error. The technical malfunction involved a faulty sensor that caused the plane's automated flight control system to repeatedly push the nose of the plane down, despite the pilot's attempts to correct the issue. The pilot error involved a failure to recognize and respond appropriately to the malfunction, as well as a lack of communication and coordination among the flight crew. The crash of Lion Air Flight 610 led to the grounding of all Boeing 737 MAX planes around the world, as well as a significant overhaul of the plane's flight control systems and a reassessment of pilot training programs. The crash of Lion Air Flight 610 was a tragic event that had a significant impact on the aviation industry and the way that airplane safety is regulated and monitored. The Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 crash that occurred on January 8, 2020. Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 was a Boeing 737-800 flying from Tehran, Iran, to Kyiv, Ukraine. The plane crashed shortly after takeoff from Tehran, killing all 176 people on board, including crew and passengers from several countries. The cause of the crash was determined to be the accidental firing of 2 missiles by the Iranian military, who had mistaken the plane for a hostile target amid escalating tensions with the United States. The crash of Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 led to significant diplomatic tensions between Iran and several other countries, as well as calls for greater transparency and accountability in the investigation of the incident. The crash of Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 was a tragic event that had a significant impact on the aviation industry and international relations. The Sriwijaya Air Flight 182 crash that occurred on January 9, 2021. Sriwijaya Air Flight 182 was a Boeing 737-500 flying from Jakarta, Indonesia, to Pontianak, Indonesia. The The plane crashed into the Java Sea shortly after takeoff, killing all 62 people on board, including crew and passengers. The cause of the crash is believed to be a combination of factors, including technical malfunctions and weather conditions. The technical malfunction involved a malfunctioning throttle control system, which caused the plane's engine to lose power and led to a loss of control by the pilots. The weather conditions at the time of the crash were also reported to be challenging, with heavy rain and strong winds affecting visibility and potentially exacerbating the effects of the technical malfunction. The crash of Sriwijaya Air Flight 182 was a tragic event that highlighted the importance of continued efforts to improve airplane safety and prevent accidents.